and a couple times, and then I just move on to the next guest. So, like, let's just speed it up here. What's the point you want to make? Why is Trump a good president? You got my attention. You got the mic. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me up in the first place. But I do agree with a lot of the immigration stuff, economy. But right now, the economy ain't doing great. Could be better.
Yeah, one of the big reasons to not support Trump is because he made the economy terrible. He crashed the American economy. Yeah.
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 But with the immigration, correct me if I'm wrong, but crime rates have gone down by a bit.
They've been going down for the last 5 years. Murder rates fell by 15% under Biden in 2024. If anything, we'd expect Trump's mass deportation to have an upward pressure on crime rates because he's deporting less of the violent, criminal, undocumented immigrants, and it destabilizes the economy, which causes more poverty, which is linked to crime. So...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. My bad. But most of the deportations done have been self-deportations and not forced deportations.
Right. It's about 50%.
Yeah, no one was forcing them to deport themselves.
So you don't think that coercion is
their
forced?
choice.
If I put a gun to your head and I said, give me 10 push-ups or I'm going to pull the trigger and you gave me 10 push-ups, did I force you to do 10 push-ups even though you chose to sit down on the ground and give me 10? I'd say that coercion is a form of force. Okay, and when undocumented immigrants see other immigrants getting brutalized, illegally detained, shoved in these terrible, terrible camps like Alligator Alcatraz where they don't have clean running water or meals with maggots in them, when they see innocent people deported to Seacot where they're literally tortured and starved, when they see people get shot and killed for doing nothing, yeah, I would say that is a coercive force that has led to self-deportations. Now, when do you get to the point about what Donald Trump is doing that's good for this country that explains your support for him?
Well, as you stated, crime rates have gone down under Biden and Trump. So. And
then I explained how, if anything, his mass deportation has had an upward pressure on the crime rates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but with the self-deportation versus being put on a plane and taken back to your country, they were given two options. You can go rehome yourself back to where you came from, or be put on a plane and be forced back to where you came from.
It just sounds like you're talking to talk. I still haven't heard a response to anything I've said or a valid reason why Trump is a good president. Do you have an argument?
Yeah.
What is it?
Most of it's immigration, because that's the topic that I've studied the most.
What's the argument then, please? Can I get the argument?
Well, he's making our country a good bit safer because he's deporting all of the criminals.
I've already explained to you how this is false. What was my explanation? Can you repeat it, please?
All right, but every illegal immigrant...
Can you repeat the argument that I gave you, please? No, you can't.
I don't remember the exact argument that you stated.
Yeah, you just said that every undocumented immigrant is a criminal. That is wrong. A criminal who is somebody who's engaged in criminal activity or found guilty of criminal activity. Honestly, I would say found guilty of criminal activity.
Is a federal crime to come into a country undocumented. That requires documents.
Yeah, so A, it's never prosecuted. They're just deported. And B, if it is prosecuted, it's prosecuted in civil courts. It's a civil offense, not a criminal offense, which explains why not every undocumented immigrant is a criminal. Not to mention that some undocumented immigrants, especially those that came into the country as children, have a protected status like DACA recipients, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Or are we going to get to the argument part? Like about why you think that Trump's a good president? Are we gonna get there at at any point? Should I just start throwing shit out there? Okay, you said that it's making the country safer. No, it's not. Okay, I already gave you an explanation of how, of anything, Donald Trump's mass deportation has put an upward pressure on crime rates because they're focusing less on the undocumented immigrants that are actually committing the bad crimes and more on the innocent undocumented immigrants that are just here for a better life. Mm-hmm. Okay, we've also went over how it destroys the economy, reduces the productive capacities of American manufacturers, reduces GDP growth, reduces taxable revenue, increases poverty, which also has an upward pressure on crime rates. You know, we could also go over your own hypocrisy because you're like, oh, every undocumented immigrant is a criminal, which explains why we need them out of the country. But then when Donald Trump is literally found guilty of 34 felonies in a court of law and literally held civilly liable for raping a woman, you can't even say the bare minimum that we should get him out of the White House. Like, like, where do you want to go, bro? Like, come on. Like, I just, the same talking points from every single guest are being regurgitated right now by you. What's your response to the counter arguments?
So I can agree with most people. Grape is considered a very wrong thing. That's pretty common knowledge. But I don't look at a president for what they've done before. I look at them, are they doing pretty good for the country? You know?
Okay, so then let's look at undocumented immigrants the same way. Let's not be concerned with the fact that they broke a law coming into the country. Let's more so be concerned with the fact that they're making the country better by making active and major contributions to the GDP, taxable revenue, productive capacities of our manufacturers, buying more goods, selling goods, producing goods, selling services, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you're an illegal,
so we should look at undocumented immigrants and their economic contributions that make the country better, right?
I mean, I think that they should, but
Wait, so we shouldn't even look at the fact that they broke the law. That's completely irrelevant because they make the country better, correct?
They're not always making the country better. Like,
yeah, undocumented immigrants as a demographic make the country better. That is undeniable. We're looking at them as a holistic demographic. The demographic of undocumented immigrants make the country better, correct or incorrect?
They can take the country for a turn for the worse.
Okay, so I want you to go ahead and give me an argument that the overall demographic of undocumented immigrants make the country worse. What is the argument for that claim?
Okay, but what I was trying to say just a minute ago.
Now, can I get an argument for that claim, please?
Okay, sorry, 1 second. But not taking into account that it's a crime to come into the country undocumented. Like, if you're a good person, my heart breaks that you got deported, you know?
Can you answer my question, please?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Dude, I said it 3 times. What is the argument for the claim that undocumented immigrants as a demographic make the country worse off?
Okay, sorry. So crime.
So your claim is that they increase crime.
A lot of crimes committed have been by illegals lately, not including.
False. That claim is false. According to PNAS, undocumented immigrants actually reduce crime rates, not only because they are directly 2.5 times less likely to commit a violent crime and 4 times less likely to commit a nonviolent crime, but they also make the economy better, which reduces poverty, which also helps to overall reduce crime.
Mm-hmm. Because if you are doing good for the country,
do you concede the claim that undocumented immigrants increase crime?
Yes and no. It's sort of your
yes and no is a contradiction. It's either the case that you still do affirm the claim or you concede the claim. You cannot simultaneously affirm and concede. Okay, how do you affirm the claim that undocumented increase crimes in light of the fact that they literally reduce crime rates?
I mean, that I wasn't 100% aware of. But
now that you are aware of that, how can you still affirm the claim that undocumented immigrants increase crimes in light of the fact that they literally reduce crime rates?
Okay. Most of the crimes that do get committed by an illegal immigrant are very, very heinous.
The claim that most of the crimes that are committed by undocumented immigrants are very heinous is not only false, but also, once again, a non-response to the question that was asked of you. The question that was asked of you is, how do you affirm the claim that undocumented immigrants increase crimes when they directly reduce crime rates by being 2.5 times less likely to commit violent crimes and 4 times less likely to commit nonviolent crimes? And they also indirectly reduce crime rates by making the economy better, which reduces poverty, which reduces crime.
So could you tell me how they're making the economy better?
By contributing $1.1 through $1.7 trillion to GDP per year, by contributing $100 billion to taxable revenue per year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. My bad. I was doing something.
So do you concede the claim that undocumented immigrants increase crime?
Yeah.
So then
I didn't say they increase crime, but I'm saying that they are a portion of it.
Okay. No. You made the claim that they increase crime, which is one way that the demographic of all undocumented immigrants makes America worse off.
Sir. Excuse me.
How many continents are there, my friend?
Shit. 7.
How many?
I think 7 off the top of my head.
Name them.
What? So South America, North America, Europe.
Europe's not a continent.
Dude. Okay, thanks. Sorry. I was never good at
Europe is a continent, my friend. We're gonna move on to the next guest. Dude. Lord have mercy. We're gonna move on to the next guest. Only hop inside of the queue if you hop, dude. Like they got those that guy was an actual robot, dude. That guy was an actual robot, bro. We're gonna move on to the next guest. Lord have fucking mercy. Lord have mercy, dude. Lord have mercy. Only hop inside of the queue if you happen to be an American adult that supports Trump as president. Just like Jesus Christ. Katie Davis, I appreciate you for the galaxy. That's very kind of you. Let's go to get the next guest connected. Only drop inside of the queue if you happen to be an American adult that supports Donald J. Trump as president. Please and thank you. I'd really appreciate it so much if you could do your very best to follow those rules. Let's go to get the next guest, Xander Green, connected. Munch! Thank you so much for the $50 donation over on YouTube Super Chat. Thank you so much for that love, Munch. Let's go ahead and get 500 Munch W's down below. That is very kind of you. That is very kind of you, Munch. Munch with a $50 says, blows my mind every time that Chester Cheetah, Boot, Liquors, and John Sniffers don't know the difference between a claim and an argument. Keep on cooking, Chef Boyardee. Dude, I'm trying my best to cook, dude. But like, listen, I can't cook with shit ingredients. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people that we've spoken with today have been shit ingredients. You know what I mean? Thank you so much for the $50. That is very kind of you. That is a major donation, and I'm so grateful for you. Same thing to you, Chose of the Goat with the $20, who says, fun fact, the Trump tariffs led to China increasing carbide costs. This directly increases U.S. manufacturing costs, as carbide is going up by 6 times the cost. GM plants are actively having meetings about this. Hey, well, thank you so much for that information. I'll try to wrap that into my debates. Thank you. And then Miss Persephone, thank you so much for the $50 donation over on YouTube Super Chat. Thank you. Let's get 500 Persephone W's. That is so kind of you. Persephone, I'm not going to read your message out loud in case that was a part of what got us taken down for misinformation, even though the ban was false. Just know that I appreciate you, and I'd highly recommend that everybody watching on YouTube definitely takes a look at what she said. Thank you for the love. Welcome in. Do you support Trump?
I'm sorry, Dean.
That would be a small little child. Only hop inside of the queue if you happen to be an American adult that supports Donald J. Trump as president. Folks, I don't know what's going on today. We're not really finding too many Trump supporters. I know that they're very scared of me, but try to hop inside of the queue. For all the Trump supporters watching, I want you to grow a little bit of a spine, a little bit of a backbone, be a real MAGA American, and only hop inside of that queue if you're here for a debate. I'd appreciate that, folks. I'd appreciate that. Let's go to get the next guest, Nick F. Fishing, connected. Thank you, Hannah, for the $10 donation over on Venmo. I appreciate you so much. That's very kind of you, Hannah. Thanks for letting me know. Nick, do you support Trump?
Yes, sir, I do.
You got me playing on a second device. Can you turn that off or something?
No.
Okay, maybe it's like a little bit of an echo or something. I don't know.
I think I got you.
Yeah, how old are you?
18.
What year were you born in?
2008.
Okay. I'm going to thank a couple people. Then the mic and the floor will be yours. Remy, that is R-E-M-I-E. Thank you for the $10. Who says, supporting everything that you do, Dean. Can you please call me the Goofy Goober? Okay. Thank you for the $10, you Goofy Goober. Appreciate you. As well, Joseph, thank you so much for the $20 donation. Who says, switched over to YouTube to see you become a total robot and agent devoid of free will. That was cold. I appreciate you for the $20, Joseph. Oh, yeah, dude, we're only like an hour deep into the stream today, and I'm already having so many goddamn issues. Holy shit. Same thing to you, Barta. Thank you for the $20. I appreciate you. Let's get the 200 Barda W's. I was in his stream last night. Absolutely. He's a damn good debater. Thank you for that love, Barda. Ian, thank you for the $15, who says, I was called a simple-minded Trump supporter by a keyboard warrior today because I said that privately funded indie race in DC was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that like an indie race in DC could be cool without it being like reflective of any positive attributes of the Trump administration, which I would assume is what you meant by that. Sorry about that, Ian. Thank you for the $15. Then one more person to thank on Venmo for now, Mr. Daniel. Thank you for the $25 donation. He says, hey, Dean, it's my 18th birthday today. I just want to say that I watch you often. I love what you do. Keep on going. Keep changing minds until we win against the origin and have a better economy. You are the best. You are the best, Daniel. And happy 18th birthday. That is a big birthday. I remember my 18th birthday. But I also remember thinking like, oh, like rats, this sucks. I wish it was just my 21st birthday so I could actually get some more rights. I appreciate you for the love. Thank you as well, Max, for the $10. I do remember you, Max. Jonathan, thank you for the $12 on PayPal. He just wanted to say I love your content. Thanks, Jonathan. Let's get 100 Jonathan W's. And then James, SJ, and Mask, and Leslie. What the fuck? James, SJ, Max, and Leslie. Thank you guys so much for the $50 donations each. I want to see 500 James W's, 500 Mask W's, 500 Leslie W's, and 500 SJ W's in that chat. That is fucking wild. Holy cow. Thank you, you guys. James with the 50 says, blessings to you, my man. Keep on going on and stay safe. I'm trying my best to stay safe, brother. It's a little bit hard right now. Things are a little bit scary. Thank you for the love, though. SJ with the $50 actually asked me to not read their message out loud. You got that, SJ. I'll keep that to myself. Just know that I really appreciate you. Mask also with a $50 donation also asked me to not read their message out loud. So you got that. Thank you, Mass and SJ. And then Leslie with a $50 says, fellow Coloradian here, the unconscionable theft of the treasury grift and $1.5 billion so far entrenchment by the president and sycophants must end and be clawed back. MAGAs ignore deficit and power harp when dims in power must be offset by cuts to discretionary spending. I appreciate you so much for the love, Leslie. I think the big takeaway from that message is just that the right are spending big, which is absolutely true. We are already an additional $3 trillion in debt today because of the Trump administration, and we're only a year and a half into their term. Why don't you going to take it away, Nick? Tell us why you support Trump. Thank you guys for the love. Show some major love to all the donors down below.
Yes, sir. All right. So, like, one of the main reasons why I support Trump is mostly, like, just from his first term, you know? I mean, like the biggest thing is he had, like, a lot of middle-class relief, I feel like. You know, like, the working class was benefited from it, the middle class was benefited, and the upper class was benefited, too, from his tax cuts.
Yeah, if every single thing that you just said was true, this wouldn't explain why you support Trump today. It would just explain why you would have supported Trump 10 years ago.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I do still support Trump, because of what he did in his first term.
Okay, so let me make this clear. So you think in his first term that he actually made life easier for the average American, and that's why you support him today when we know he's actively making life harder for the average American?
Yes, because his policies are still standing today.
No. In fact, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is no longer standing. That was replaced by the Big Beautiful Bill, which, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, is reducing the purchasing power of the average American making at or under $51,000 per year.
Yeah. Shit, you kind of got me there. Well, like, I also support his border policy, too.
Okay, so you're just completely moving on from the... No.
Oh,
I want to talk about the economy. Do you concede that Trump is bad for the economy?
No.
Okay, then what is one macroeconomic indicator that's better off today than it was a year and a half ago under Biden? How has he made the economy better?
I haven't studied that far into it.
Okay, well then how do you know that he's not bad for the economy?
Because of what he did in his first term.
Okay. So what specifically did he do in his first term which explains why he's good for the economy today?
Where he helped out the working class.
Okay, which was what? What policy?
I don't have the exact policy, but...
Then how do you know that he helped out the working class?
Because in 2019, the lowest 25% of wage earners saw a 4.5% wage increase.
Okay, in 2019, you know what else we saw in 2019? You know what else we saw in 2019, my friend? We saw the highest level of unemployment in 100 years. In April 2019, our unemployment rate was 14.8%. So just to be clear, young man, I'm not scared of you. Okay, I'm not scared of you. Pipe down. Just to be clear, young man, you're saying that something transpired in the American economy in 2019. And because Trump was president when that transpired, Donald Trump therefore caused it. So let's just go ahead and apply your logic to the highest level of unemployment in 100 years. And if you want to respond by saying, well, Dean, that wasn't caused by Trump, that was caused by external factors like the pandemic. Okay, well, then you're just saying that there are other things outside of the president who can impact the economy. So now you're going to have to prove that Donald Trump did indeed cause that first economic outcome of really fast median wage growth by demonstrating the policy that he passed that caused it.
Yeah, Dean, you're right. You kind of got me here. But also, I have one more question for you.
So do you concede that you can't make an argument that he's good for the economy?
Yeah, but
okay.
Can
the
I ask you
argument
one
that
more
he's bad
question?
for the economy is very clear. His tariffs caused the most manufacturing bankruptcies in 15 years since 2010 last year in 2015, 2025. We also saw the very worst jobs report in 20 years, ignoring recessions, only adding 181,000 jobs to the economy compared to 2.2 million jobs a year prior. We've seen inflation go up since the start of his second term. We've seen layoffs go up since the start of his second term. We've seen real median wage growth go down since the start of his second term. We've seen real GDP growth go down since the start of his second term. We've seen investment in manufacturers go down since the start of his second term. And we've seen, let's see here, unemployment go up since the start of the second term. And we've seen gas prices skyrocket since the start of the second term. So you're telling us here that you have no argument that you could give to me to justify the claim that he's good for the economy. Meanwhile, I just gave you an argument that involved maybe like 10 macroeconomic variables to explain why he's bad for the economy. So do you agree that we have more reason to believe that Trump is bad for the economy than we do have reason to believe that Trump is good for the economy?
I think so. I think that you got me on that topic. But
okay. So because you concede that he's bad for the economy, and the reason why you supported him as president is because you thought he was good for the economy, do you now concede your support for Trump as a whole?
Yes, but before you take me off, can I ask you one more question?
What?
And this is just ingenuine. It doesn't relate to Trump. But you said that, well, I mean, it kind of does. It more so relates to you. So you said that if it doesn't affect, you said in a debate or two ago, you said that if it doesn't affect, like you personally as a person, then why is MAGA still talking about it? But I also feel. No. What'd you say then?
Said if it doesn't affect you or the nation in a positive way, then why is it something that you support?
Oh, my bad. I misheard you then. I'm sorry. All right, Dean. Well, I appreciate you for letting me on here, and you definitely changed my mind. So
yeah, I'm happy I could change your mind, man. W. What does La Peace in the chat mean? What are you guys talking about? What are we yapping about? Quite frankly, what are we yapping about, folks? No clue. Hey, what's up? Do you support Trump?
Yeah, good to talk to you again, Dean.
We've spoken before.
We have 2 different times.
Oh, wow. That's crazy, man. I don't even know. I don't even remember you, sir. Your bio says, as seen on Jubilee. You've been on Jubilee.
Yeah, I debated Glenn Greenwald earlier this year, and then I'll be on another episode later on this year.
Wow, very interesting, man. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, hang out with us just for one moment while I thank a couple people. Folks, if you want to support me and you want to support the stream, you can find a link to my Venmo and my PayPal in the link tree in the bio of my TikTok account. You could also always find the handle living right there at the top of the phone screen. It's literally just my name, Dean Withers, without the letter E in my last name, Withers. The handle also always permanently lives in the pinned comment over in that YouTube stream. If you use a handle for Venmo or PayPal, just quadruple check your spelling, get every letter right, or else you'll end up sending it to a fake account. All the donations will be going into funding the security and safety of me and my girlfriend, so that's where your donors are going to. Let me thank a couple people here. Thank you, Mary, for the $1 donation on Venmo. Thank you, Gabrielle, for the $5 donation on Venmo. That's very kind of you. Thank you. And then Andrew, thank you for the $50 donation on Venmo. Jesus Christ, man, that is a huge donation. I'm very grateful for you. Let's get 500 Andrew W's. Thank you so much. Andrew the 50 says, what are your thoughts on teams going into the current NFL season? Who's winning the Super Bowl? I actually don't keep up with the NFL. I do keep up with college football. Big fan of the Buffs. NFL, don't really keep up. I appreciate you for the love, man, and I'm sorry if I didn't give you a satisfying answer. Mr. J, thank you so much for the $50 donation as well over on Super Chat. Thank you, Jay. Let's get 500 JWs. Jay with the $50, thank you, dude, says, I need help on who I should decide for midterms here in Iowa. I went to a Rob Sand thing today, and he just seems better than the guy who's mostly lived in Kansas. I'm sorry, I actually can't help you out. I don't know who's running in Iowa, but tune back in tomorrow, Jay. I'll try to take a look at that tonight. Thank you for the $50. Lord T, thank you for the $20, who says, breaking news, Secret Service aware of Iranian state media videos threatening Barron Trump's life. Oh, geez. I appreciate you for the $20. Yeah, I don't know why they're going after Barron, dude. Whatever. A couple people to thank over on PayPal. Thank you so much for the $2, Audrey. Donald, thank you for the $1. Leslie, thank you. Actually, I already thanked you, but I'll thank you again. Thank you for the donation earlier. A, thank you for the $2. And then Hazel with the $5 says, Rip Dolly and fuck Donald Trump, you the goat, Dean. Appreciate you. Thank you. Go ahead and take it away, man. Tell us how the hell you still support this crazy idiot.
Yeah, man, it's your live, and I can yap all day. So would you do you prefer that response in a sentence, a paragraph, or an essay? I'll pull that same move that you always pull.
Whatever you think is satisfactory.
Okay, I'll give you the paragraph then. I'm conservative and I support Trump because I believe that our rights come from our creator, not from our government, and that gives us certain responsibilities as a society. I believe that we should protect the nuclear family and recognize biological reality, protect innocent human life from conception, and maintain a secure border and enforce immigration laws. I don't believe bodily autonomy is an absolute right because we already place legal limits on what people can do with their own bodies when there's a compelling reason to do so. And that's why I support Trump, not because I think he's perfect or that Republicans are always right, but because his policies on things like biological sex, abortion, border security, and immigration generally align with the principles that I already believe in.
Okay. Yeah, this will be a lot of fun. So you said that you think abortion is murder and you think that's wrong. We need to protect the innocent human life.
Absolutely.
So you think that a fetus is an innocent human life?
Absolutely.
Can you define the word innocent?
Not guilty of committing any crimes.
Okay. Are fire hydrants guilty of committing any crimes?
This is obviously going to be in relativity to human beings. So I don't think that fire extinguishers or fire hydrants have any
No. Obviously. Well, no. I asked you, you said that you apply a property to the fetus called innocence. And then I asked you how you define this property that you apply to the fetus. And you said not being guilty
let me clarify
of any crime.
Sure,
Okay, well, that property could apply to non-humans like fire hydrants.
Sure. So I guess I need to clarify my definition then. A human that has not been guilty of any crimes would be innocent.
Okay. Are dead bodies innocent?
Are dead bodies innocent? They are not innocent or guilty. I mean, it depends on the life that they
human
live.
body, right?
Right. Okay. So let me clarify the definition even further for you then. A human that is alive that has not committed any crimes would be innocent.
Okay. So let's just take a partial molar pregnancy. Okay. A partial molar pregnancy is a significantly malformed human thing. It is literally just a clump of human cells in a little ball of skin with a couple pieces of hair on it. It's still technically alive and technically human. You could look it up. It's pretty jarring. Okay. Really jarring. Would you say that those little like skin balls are innocent? Because they're human, they're alive, and they're not guilty of any big crimes?
You're talking about a molar pregnancy?
Yeah.
I haven't done any. I don't know what that is. I'll look it up real quick.
Okay. Be warned. They're grody, dude. Be warned. It is a significantly defective human being that had major chromosomal defects. It is a partial molar pregnancy, by the way. Okay, and it's just a little skin ball, but it's still technically alive and it's still technically a human. Would it make any sense to call that innocent?
I mean, it would be innocent, of course, but it's also not viable.
Okay,
and there's
so you would call it innocent?
There's no future viability.
So you're saying that it would be you're saying that it would be proper and accurate to say that it's innocent?
I would say it's not guilty of any, it's not guilty nor innocent.
Okay, even though it's a human and it's alive. So let me explain to you why I'm being super pedantic here, because I promise it's for more of a reason than just owning the guest. So you gave me the first definition of innocence. You just said anything that's not guilty of any grave moral wrongdoing. Okay, well, that would apply to a fire hydrant. So that's a fire hydrant. So that's not an accurate description of
right.
What innocence
I clarified that.
And then you clarified that. Okay, you said, well, a human that's innocent. Okay, well, that would apply to a dead body. So that doesn't make any sense. So then you said a human that's alive, that's not guilty of any wrongdoings. Okay, well, that would apply to these partial molar pregnancies, which you just said can't be innocent or guilty. So that wouldn't make any sense either. The reason why I'm running you down this train of thought is because there's another, okay, very important prerequisite in order for anything to be innocent. That thing has to be capable of being guilty. It has to be an agent with volition. Now, I'm telling you this because this definition of innocence, the only coherent definition that exists, wouldn't apply to fetuses. Fetuses don't have the capacity to be innocent or guilty. So
well, then
when pro-lifers call the fetus innocent, okay,
Dude,
I just don't think the definition would apply.
Let me just interrupt you for just 1 second, because I know that you said like dead bodies cannot be innocent, but it is still important that we do not degrade dead bodies. Like if you go into a cemetery and you dig up someone's grave, that would be a crime in some states. So I mean that's not even relative to the argument at this point.
Okay. So the claim that the fetus is innocent has nothing to do with why you think it's wrong.
One other thing I want to respond to. That same line of logic could be applied to toddlers or newborns, infants.
I disagree.
Because I mean, you're saying that you have to have the ability to commit crime.
No, not
or
the
to be
ability,
guilty
the
of something.
capacity.
The capacity, sure. So a newborn baby does not have the capacity to commit a crime. So therefore, you would say that they are not innocent or guilty.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I think that the newborn baby has what is called the capacity for volition in the same way the newborn baby has the capacity for rationale. They do. In fact, I think that capacity emerges in utero at around 20 through 24 weeks with the development of particular brain structures that serve as a necessary neural foundation in order to engage in rationale, volition, and will. Now,
I'm going to
think about it this way.
I'm going to press you on that for sure. I mean, what crime could a newborn baby be found guilty of?
Okay, so it's not about something that is actual, okay? A newborn baby can't actually engage in a volitional will. A newborn baby can't actually commit a crime, okay? It's
Agreed.
about it's about their capacity.
They don't have the capacity to commit crime.
So a newborn has the capacity for volition. Because remember, that's a thing that I told you is necessary in order to define innocence. It's a capacity for volition.
Okay, and in what instance would a newborn baby have the capacity of volition?
Yeah, literally all typical instances where they have the brain structures that developed at 20 through 24 weeks, which serve as a necessary prerequisite for actual volition. A capacity is just something, so a capacity could be defined as a feature or fact that is true of X or as a tendency to be true of X, okay? And it's a tendency of the brain structures that develop at 20 through 24 week for a thing to be rational. That's why it makes sense for us to say that a newborn has the capacity for intellect, a capacity for rationale, because the brain in which they possess is of the kind that allows for them to be rational. Now, very similarly, this capacity talk maybe is best understood through analogy. Think about it this way. Does an acorn have the capacity to one day turn into an oak tree? Yeah. But is an acorn able to turn into an oak tree today? No. We're just talking about what its powers are in accordance with its own makeup.
Yeah, I mean, we could apply that same logic to a fetus in the womb then. Because a fetus in the womb and a newborn baby, they both do not, they cannot commit any crimes. They are both not guilty.
Yeah, and I disagree with that too. I don't think that the fetus gains the capacity for rationale or volition until around 20 through 24 weeks gestation. The reason why I'd argue
and
this
I'm asking you
is
for an
because I
example
think
of that.
that capacity is completely dependent on the brain structures that emerge at that point in pregnancy. The reason why we're rational, right, isn't because of our species. You know, the only similarity between us and the fetus prior to 20 through 24 weeks. No, the reason why we're rational is because of a sufficiently advanced nervous system in which begins to emerge at around 20 through 24 weeks when we're able to finally detect low levels of sentience. Now, if you're confused on this point, I could try to make the point clear with the use of an analogy, because I think that some of these terms like capacity are rather primitive and arbitrary and in fact really hard to define and understand. The best way to understand them is through analogy. I could give you an analogy.
Yeah, I mean, you can give me all the analogies, but you haven't answered the question that I asked you. What is a newborn baby like? How can they possibly be found guilty of anything? Of what volition do they have the capacity to possess?
Okay, so I actually already have responded to this. I responded by calling you confused. Remember, my argument is not that a newborn actually has a rational volitional will. That's not what I'm arguing in the slightest. I'm arguing that it has the capacity for an actual volitional will. And you continue to confuse capacity with actual. Okay, a newborn can't actually commit a crime. It just has the capacity for the type of will that could make them culpable of a crime. Remember, the argument here completely hinges on capacity.
Right, and neither a newborn nor a fetus have the capacity to commit crime. So they are both innocent and both deserve human rights.
Yeah, so the reading of capacity under my view would say that the fetus after 20 through 24 weeks and the newborn absolutely do have the capacity for a rational volitional will. I've given you my reading of capacity. I've explained it to you in about 3 different ways that I've offered you analogies so you could better understand it further. Now, you're saying that under your reading of capacity, it's actually false that the fetus or the newborn would have the capacity for rationale. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about your reading of capacity? How do you define that word?
Capacity, the ability to do something. If you have the capacity to do something.
Oh, well, that's a terrible, idiosyncratic misunderstanding of capacity for sure. Do you have the capacity to have $1 billion in your bank account?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bank account and it could fit $1 billion in it. The bank could allow me to have $1 billion in it, yes.
But do you have the actual ability right now, today, at this moment, to get $1 billion in your bank account?
No, I don't have $1 billion, Dean.
Okay, so you just conceded that, no, we don't define capacity based on our current abilities.
Well, I mean, I do have the ability to start a business. It could be successful. I could, become president one day. I have the capacity to do those things. I have the ability to do those things.
Well, now you're just shifting the goalposts. The question wasn't, do you have the capacity to possibly have $1 billion in your bank account at some point in the future? No, the question was rather, do you have the capacity to have $1 billion in your bank account right now? The answer to that question is yes. You do have that capacity, but you don't have the active ability, which shows the difference between active ability and capacity and explains to you why you're wrong when you define capacity as an active ability.
Yeah, I would just disagree with that completely. I mean, I do have the capacity to put $1 billion in my bank account.
Right now,
Like, I have
correct?
Maybe
You have
I
that capacity. Right now, you have that. Right now, today, at this very moment, you have the capacity to have $1 billion in your bank account, correct?
Yes, I have the capacity to.
Right now, at this very moment, not in the future, right now, do you have the ability to put $1 billion in your bank account?
I mean, it depends on what you're defining ability as. I mean, I have the ability to go rob a bank or hit like 20 straight parlays on FanDuel and I'll have $1 billion in my account. But I really don't know how you're tying this
well,
into
now it
abortion.
just seems like you're
a
just
really bad
redefining
argument.
ability to then be capacity. Listen,
Like, I have the capacity to become a
just because you're not like well read in the literature on what a capacity is, like doesn't mean that I'm giving you a bad argument. It just means that I'm giving you an argument that you don't understand. And that's fine. I don't expect everybody to be well read on these things, but don't confuse your confusion for like my lack of a good argument. I'm just telling you, yeah, we include some capacity for volition, okay, as a prerequisite for defining innocence, because it helps us understand why dead bodies aren't innocent or guilty, and that helps us understand why partial molar pregnancies aren't innocent or guilty, and it helps us understand why newborns are innocent or guilty even though they can't actively engage in a grave immoral action. Like, yeah, like this is the way that we understand it. We understand it by invoking talk about capacity, ability, and you don't understand that, which is fine. I would maybe recommend you go research that on your own time. But let's hear the argument. What's the reason why killing a fetus is unjust?
Well, once again, I would go to innocence there. But I think that humans inherently have moral worth to them because we are created in the image of God.
Okay.
It says in Scripture that God knew us before the womb, which would imply that we are eternal. So He knew us before we were in the womb. Therefore, He knows you while you're in the womb at every stage of development. He knows you after your womb, and at every single point, you are of moral worth, and you are and from a governmental sense, like from a legislative stance, I think that human rights should apply to people inside and outside the womb.
Yeah, you're getting real lost here, okay? But this is a necessary step that we have to take. Invoking Christianity actually gets us no closer to the pro-life conclusion that abortion is always wrong. No closer. Some of the smartest, best, and brightest Christian theologians throughout history were, in fact, not in favor of the claim that abortion is always murder. Take St. Thomas Aquinas, for instance, one of the smartest people that has ever lived. He didn't think that abortion was murder until later in the pregnancy because he believed in delayed ensoulment, which happens to perfectly align with our conversation that we just had surrounding capacity. So St. Thomas Aquinas thought that you only become a person later in pregnancy. And modern day defenders of the strict Thomistic view argue that you actually don't become you and your personal identity doesn't emerge until around 20 through 24 weeks with the development of brain structures that allow for the rational ensoulment of your human matter. Now, what does this mean? Well, this means that we now have an alternative interpretation of the scripture that you just gave me to mean that when God says, well, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb, like, yeah, he knew that he'd form you in your mother's womb, but that formation only took place later in pregnancy, meaning that you actually have not given me sufficient reason to believe that abortion is morally wrong before 20 through 24 weeks.
I absolutely did with that verse. It's Jeremiah 1:5. It says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as a prophet to the nations.
Yeah,
so that implies that if he knew you before you were in the womb, that means that you were a person to him before you were ever even conceived.
Okay, so no, that's not true.
That is that is the direct interpretation.
And
I know you referenced
I'll explain to you why that's not true.
I know you referenced St. Thomas there, but I would actually.
I'll explain to you why. I'll explain to you why that's not true. No, the interpretation of this verse is not that you were a person before you were a person, because that's contradictory. No, the interpretation of this verse is that God knew you would be a person in the future. Think about it this way: you're in the process of lighting a campfire. Do you know that wood will in the future become ash?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
When you light a campfire, do you know that wood will become ash?
Yes, you do.
Okay, does that mean that wood is currently ash?
No, it does not.
Very similarly, when we read that verse in the Christian Bible, and God says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb, yeah, he just knows that he's going to form you in your mother's womb, and if we take a Thomistic metaphysical reading in a very strict sense on what makes a human being and what makes you you, you could very well argue that you're not actually you, and your personal identity doesn't emerge until around 20 through 24 weeks in womb.
Well, you made a false equivalency there. Obviously, when we were talking about this Bible verse, we were talking about human beings and our worth before God. And I'll tell you the interpretation from the John MacArthur Bible from Jeremiah 1:5. This is not reincarnation; it's God's all-knowing cognizance of Jeremiah and sovereign plan for him before he was conceived.
Right, a sovereign plan. He has a plan that you will be a person in the future. He has a sovereign
plan for you and for me and for everyone in this live that's listening, everyone in the world. Before you were ever conceived, he had a plan set apart for you. And I think that abortion is infringing on God's plan.
Oh, do you agree do you agree that man and woman having sex were a part of God's plan?
That man and woman obviously it's part of God's plan for men and women.
Can God's plan ever fail?
God's plan never fails.
Okay, so they couldn't have chose to do otherwise, because if they did do otherwise, then God's plan would have failed?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question. Yeah, God's plan is perfect.
Yeah, and you're saying that man and that woman who had sex that led to the creation of that zygote, which then later became you, was a part of God's plan, and God's plan can never failed, which means they couldn't have failed to have sex with one another, which means they couldn't have chosen otherwise, and if they couldn't have chosen otherwise, that means they don't have free will.
No, I mean, we are predestined, but we still have free will.
Okay. So could they have chosen otherwise or not?
So in other words, I mean, yes, we have free will to do what we want, but God already knows what we're going to do.
Could they have chosen to do otherwise?
They could have chosen to, and God would have known that they were going to choose to not do that.
Oh, okay.
So we have free will while simultaneously being predestined for that, for God's plan.
I think that's actually contradictory. Because God's plan can't fail, they couldn't have chosen to do otherwise, because if they did choose to do otherwise, then God's plan would have failed. Your response is to say, well, God just simply has the foreknowledge of what they will do in the future.
Correct.
Okay. Well, then it doesn't seem like it's God's plan. It seems like it's our plan.
No, it would still be God's plan. He knows what choices we're going to make in our life.
So when you do anything,
foreknowledge of it.
So are you acting out God's plan right now by having this conversation with me?
Absolutely.
Okay, and who's making that decision? Is it you or God? Who's doing the planning?
I'm making the decision, but it's part of God's plan.
You're doing the planning right now for every action that you take. Are you doing the planning?
No,
you're not doing the planning, then you don't have free will.
Just like it says in the scripture that I just read you, he set us apart before we were ever conceived. So he knew the trajectory of our lives before we ever lived it. Yet we still have the free will to make those choices.
Okay. So right now, are you planning your next move?
I don't have a plan right now for this conversation. I'm kind of just letting it go.
Okay. Let me think about this more vaguely. Okay, you're playing a video game. You're writing a book. You're doing something that you enjoy. You're engaging in a hobby. Are you planning your actions? Are you planning your next move? Are you in charge of what you do next?
Yeah, I would say so.
So what you do is in accordance with your plan?
No, what I do is in accordance to God's plan. I just have the free will
How
to
do you
make those decisions.
Okay. So then so then you're not in charge of what you do. I'm just trying to figure out who's in charge of what you do.
I am ultimately in charge of the choices that I make while I'm here on Earth.
Okay, but the choices you make are a part of God's plan.
I know this is really hard to understand, Dean, but essentially, God knows the trajectory of my life. He knows every choice that I'm going to make for the rest of my life.
Wait.
But it is still of my free will to make those choices.
Wait. I just thought about another issue. So if you're saying that what we do on Earth is a part of God's plan, then you can't argue that a woman getting an abortion is wrong, because that was a part of God's plan.
I mean, so that's actually a different conversation completely, and as to why God allows for evil and for sin to enter the world. Why did He allow for Adam and Eve to be deceived by the snake?
Wait, but you can't argue that it's an evil or a sin, because your last argument to claim that it was wrong, okay, for a woman to get an abortion is that it infringed on God's plan. But then you go on to tell us that God's plan is just simply what happens. No,
yeah, so,
that woman
right,
choosing to get an abortion didn't infringe on all things that are happening, which is God's plan. No, it was a part of all things that are happening, which means it's a part of God's plan. So, in fact, you arguing that it's wrong because it violates God's plan is contradictory by nature, given the way you defined what God's plan is.
No, Dean, I would like to actually explain that, because that actually begs a deeper question as to why God allows for sin to happen in the world. We can acknowledge that abortion is sinful while recognizing that sin is important because it gives God glory. It gives us a contrast to what is good and what is evil. So it's not to say that we should allow for more evil things to happen in this world, but whenever evil things do happen, we see it as a contrast to what is good and what is righteous.
Mm-hmm. So God's plan includes evil?
Yeah, it includes sin because it gives Him glory.
Okay, is evil good or bad?
Evil is bad.
Okay, is God's plan a part of God?
God's plan. God is His plan.
So it is His plan. So He is His plan, and His plan includes evil. More than 0% evil, which means that He's not 100% good. Which means He's not all good. Which means that you're denying one of the omni properties of God. That's the issue with saying that there's any. I think seemingly the issue when you argue any orchestration of predestination under the Christian worldview, which is why Christians shouldn't argue predestination, is because if you then accept that said predestination includes immorality, then you're saying God's plan includes immorality. Then you're saying God is His plan. So then God includes immorality. And the claim that God includes immorality is heresy in accordance with any reading of the Christian God, as it would deny His omni properties, such as being all good. Or you just yield a strict contradiction when you are arguing simultaneously it's true that God is all good and God is not all good.
No, He is all good, but He allows for sin to enter the world. And there's a reason for that. And I can do that in the form of an analogy like you like to do. Let's say, for example, you were born into a $1 billion family, and all throughout your life you are given great gifts. So for your 16th birthday you got a Lamborghini, right? And then later on in life someone buys you a Lamborghini as a gift. You would not appreciate that because you are so spoiled throughout your entire life. But you take somebody that's born into poverty and doesn't receive all these great gifts throughout their entire life. You give them a Lamborghini later on in life, they can appreciate it. The same reason why God allows for sin to enter this world, so that way we can see the contrast between what's good and what is evil. If God put us into heaven, He did not have to create the earth, He did not have to create humans on a sinful planet, but He did so that whenever we get to heaven, we can appreciate the contrast between what heaven is and what earth is.
Yeah. I actually view this as a completely different argument from the one that you've been giving me for the last 20 minutes. Let me tell you why. Before it was, evil is a part of God's plan. Now it is, God just happens to allow for evil. I think that those are two different things, planning for evil and allowing for evil. Because when you argue that He doesn't just allow for evil, but He plans for evil, He predestines for evil, okay, that's an entirely different claim than the one that you're making right now, that an unfortunate byproduct of the will of humans outside of the plan of God is evil in of itself.
I mean, you're understanding me correctly, I think. But yes, it is part of God's plan to allow for sin to enter the earth. So that way we can see the contrast between what is good and what is evil. So that way whenever we get to heaven one day, we can appreciate where we are, that we live in a sinless environment.
Do you think that you need to see the contrast between good and evil in order to go to heaven?
Yeah, I think that it's very necessary to understand that you are a sinner and that you live within your sin.
Do
And whenever you
fetuses
get,
see the contrast between good and evil?
they don't have the capacity to.
So when fetuses are aborted, they don't go to heaven?
No, they do.
But you just said that you need to see the contrast between good and evil to go to heaven.
Okay, I should have clarified that because I didn't understand the question whenever you asked it. Yes,
I
God
don't
spares
understand
the
what the
rod.
word need means.
Okay, God does spare the rod from children. That is in Scripture. So no, you do not have to see evil in order to go to heaven.
Okay.
But if you understand the
so
difference between what's good and-
if you don't need to see evil to go to heaven, are you arguing that God unnecessarily wants us to see evil?
I don't think it's unnecessary at all. I think it allows
Well,
for appreciation.
if it's not necessary, then it's not needed. Okay, and you just admitted that it's not needed because fetuses go to heaven.
I would say that fetuses that go to heaven aren't going to be able to appreciate what heaven is as much as you or I would. Because whenever we get to heaven, we would be able to say, well, we lived life on earth, which was very sinful and a lot of terrible things happened. But now we get to live in heaven in a new body where we cannot sin, in a place where sin is not present.
Would you say in consideration of like all facts, it's better to appreciate what we see in heaven than not to appreciate what we see in heaven?
I would say that, yes, it is better to appreciate what we see in heaven than to not appreciate what we see in heaven.
So then heaven's imperfect because there's a more preferable state of affairs in which a heaven only includes people that appreciate it for what it is and does not include fetuses?
I'm sorry, that was a word salad right there. Go ahead.
I don't think it was a word salad. You're saying that heaven's not perfect with your current argument.
No, heaven is perfect.
Okay, well,
It is a place without sin.
then it's not preferable for us to appreciate heaven than to not appreciate heaven, because if you think that it is preferable for us to appreciate heaven compared to not appreciate heaven, yet there are people in heaven that don't appreciate heaven like fetuses, you're saying that heaven would be more preferable if everybody within it did appreciate heaven, meaning that there's a more desirable state of affairs in which could take place in heaven, meaning that heaven as it is imperfect.
Then now you understand why I'm pro-life, because I don't believe that we should infringe on another human being's ability to see the contrast between what's good and evil here on earth.
Okay. So you're conceding that you think heaven is imperfect.
I am not conceding that heaven is imperfect in the sense that I know that
well,
heaven
then you
is a
can't say
place
that it's
without
any
sin.
more desirable for the things in heaven to appreciate it than to not appreciate it, or else you'd be arguing that heaven as it is less desirable than a state of affairs in which heaven only includes people who do appreciate it.
No, I would not concede that at all. I think that a fetus
Well, then
that
you have a
gets to
contradiction.
heaven, I mean, the soul that enters heaven after being aborted is going to be understood as a human being in front of God. That's going to be spared from the rod, and that fetus is going to be able to live in a perfect place without sin. But they would also have to understand once they're in heaven that they were not given the ability to see what sin was.
Yeah, here's another question. Are you saying that all things considered, the Holocaust is justified because it allows for people to appreciate heaven?